My name is John Davis, and I am an owner of My Fleet AI, and I'm going to be covering understanding your CSA SMS basic scores today. And this is something that is problematic for a lot of different safety folks to understand what their basic scores are and how to review them and how to develop programs from the data that the FMCSA is tracking on a motor carrier. And it can be very problematic to look at the data. Okay, I know I got some problems, and then not knowing what to do with that. So I'm going to share a company that all of this data is public. You need to understand that. And I think that if you understand that everyone can see data about violations and crashes and things like that, it'll help you understand the severity of that data, and going through this of how to manage this will really help with your operation. Couple little housekeeping things. We are recording this, so don't panic. You'll be able to see this afterwards. Feel free to take notes on this. I'm going to go really in detail of the data and then what to do with the data to build a better and stronger safety program. So let me get into sharing my screen. All right. So I've got a company up here, and again, this is public data. I'm just going to go through this. This is not trying to say whether the company is good or bad or anything like that, but you need to understand where your data lives. And so you want to go to this website right here in the FMCSA. Go here. And for you working with your company, the secret to this is you want to log in so you have your complete data. So in the public view, I can't see everything. Like I can't see the driver names for the different inspections and things like that. But if you log into your portal, then you'll have that information. I can't actually see what the scores from the CSA SMS profile is, but if you log into your portal, then you can see this information. One of the key things that I want you to think about is, and I've had this happen to many different motor carriers where they do not log into their portal on a regular basis and they lose access to their portal. So I want you to get into the habit of, you as a good safety operator are going to log in at least once a month. Number one, you're going to be able to look at your data. You're going to be able to see it. You're going to see what's going on with your company, and you're not going to lose access to your portal. If you do not log into your portal on a regular basis, what's the FMCSA going to do? They're going to think that, oh, well, you're not active in here, and they're going to shut your portal down. And if that happens, it's a real pain, because then you've got to go back to the FMCSA. You've got to ask them to reinstate your portal and go through this process and things like that. A key thing that you need to know with the access to your portal is everything with the government now goes through a login.gov. Here are some common problems with login.gov. You've got a safety director at your company and you have access to your portal, and that person leaves. And there is a two-factor authentication with the login.gov. So let's say the two-factor authentication is on your safety director's phone that left the company. All right, now you're locked out of your portal. So think about those things when you're setting up your login.gov authentication on who has access to your portal. Is it just the one person, or did that person leave the company? Or do we have two or three people in the company that have access on that? I do want to show you on the Ask FMCSA, if you lose access to your portal or you have any question with your information with the FMCSA, I'm going to give you the cheat code. You're going to go to this website right here and you're going to use the chat function. If you use the phone number, which you can do that, you can be on the phone for an hour, 2 hours waiting to talk to a live person. But if you will use the chat function to ask your questions, number one, you'll get a quicker response. And number two, they will give you a copy of your chat discussion. You're able to download it afterwards. And this is the quickest way. So going back to my example, I lost access to my portal. What do I need to do? Come to this website, get into the chat. Hey, I lost access to my portal. What are the steps for me to reinstate getting access to my portal? The person on the other end will respond to you what the instructions are on that. You have a copy of that. You're going to move a lot quicker to getting that portal reinstated. But because you're watching this, you're not going to have that problem. You're going to log in every month and review your data. I want you to think about who can see this data. Your drivers can see this data. Your insurance company can see this data. Um, the lawyer on the billboard can see this data. This data is public, and you need to understand that as you're having issues with roadside inspections and roadside violations and crashes and things like that, it's all public on what I'm about to show you. So when I'm looking at a company, I did loss control. I've worked for the insurance companies. When I would do a review of the company, this is where I would start to figure out what's going on with the company. So I would see this information here on who the company is, the address, the DOT number, vehicles, drivers. If I went down to the carrier registration, the other big thing that I see missing from motor carriers is this MCS 150 report is not up to date. It's supposed to be updated within every 2 years. If you don't do that, you're going to get a big fine and they're going to suspend your DOT. I've seen it happen. It's not fun. Your trucks are out on the road. They get pulled over and they suspend the DOT and all of your trucks stop because somebody didn't update this report. It's inside of your portal. The FMCSA requires it to be updated every 2 years, but I want you to get in the habit of updating it every year. And the key things I want you to do is I want you to think about, all right, you do your last IFTA report in January of the previous year. So you have all of your mileage after January for the previous calendar year. So what you want to do is, so this person had the updated on the June 27th of 2025, and then they updated it for the previous year, the mileage on that. That's what you want to do. There's a lot of insurance companies that are requesting that motor carriers do this, that you have the most up-to-date information in your portal, because incorrect mileage, incorrect power units, incorrect drivers, any of that information can skew your basic scores because that's what the math is based on. That's what the entire algorithm is based on, is the mileage, power units, drivers, and things like that. So if you are watching this, I'm recording this in February of 2026. All right, we've gotten past January of 2026, so I know my mileage from my IFTA reports for 2025. Go ahead and update your MCS 150. Log into your FMCSA portal, update the information, put the mileage for 2025 in there, put the right power units in there, put the number of drivers in there, and you got it done. Then put it on your calendar for February of 2026. Oh, I need to update my MCS 150 report. If you do that, you'll do it on a regular basis. You're under the 2 years with the FMCSA. You're not going to have your authority suspended because you didn't do it. And your insurance company is going to be happy, and you're going to have more accurate data in this system that I'm talking about. So this is critical on making sure that you get that done. As you're going through this, if I was your insurance company looking at this, I'm monitoring what your safety rating is, and I'm monitoring your out of service rate. So your out of service rate and your basic scores are two different metrics that I'm grading you on. So if you have the national average is 6.4 and your driver out of service rate is an 8, you're going to get red flagged from the DOT and your insurance company that you've got a problem, that you have a problem with something going on with the driver out of service rate that needs to be corrected. Same thing with the vehicles or hazmat or something like that. Now, on the hazmat, there are a lot of insurance companies that do not want to insure hazmat. So you're going through your insurance renewal and they'll ask questions about, are you transporting hazmat? And you go, no, I don't transport hazmat. But we get loads where it's a partial load. It could be that it's a pallet of batteries or some paint or something like that that you're transporting. You don't normally transport hazmat, but you transported a load that has partial. Your driver got pulled over. There's a hazmat inspection on there now, and your insurance company is upset that, hey, you told me you're not transporting hazmat. You took a load with hazmat on it. I don't like this. I don't know if I even want to insure you again on your renewal. So I want you to think about that if you get in that situation where you're telling your insurance company, listen, we don't transport hazmat. Then you get a driver that takes a partial load. They get caught on the side of the road with the incorrect paperwork or whatever happens. It flags that hazmat. Your insurance company sees it, and now you have an insurance problem because of the data. I want you to really watch out for that and be upfront with that. Best procedure there is if you do get that hazmat inspection, to let your insurance agent know that, look, here's what happened. We picked up a container at the port in Savannah, Georgia. Didn't realize it. Normally, everything's cool. We were taking it to this retailer. There was batteries on there. This is what happened. We don't normally take hazmat, but being upfront, watching your data on that is going to help you watch some of those issues there. The other thing I would look at is the license and insurance here. If you click right here, that's how you get to the license and insurance. You can look at the history of the license and insurance for a motor carrier, and you can really dig deep on who's insured the motor carrier and what they've done and all that. When we're going through the basic scores, you click on one of these blue buttons. So I'm in an unsafe driving here, and you can see from August of 2025 to January of 2026, it's given me this review of this basic score. And then if you click on this, you can go back in time. You can really start looking at what your trends are on this and see, all right, we're having some upticks here, and you can really go into what is going on with this. And you can see that here with the information that is going on with this graph. So that's one way for you to really look at the data to figure out what your overall issue is under one of your basics. And I encourage safety people to look at the last 24 months. Think about what's going on with your operation and what needs to happen to change whatever the driver behavior is on the data that's going on in your basics. So we're going to go into a deep dive here on this stuff. So on these gray boxes here, and I'm showing you how to navigate this so you understand this. So it's showing me that in the last 24 months, they had 3,117 inspections. And then the violation summary ranks them. It tells you what's going on with the basic. So for unsafe driving, it's very normal to see the highest violations under unsafe driving as speeding, um, being in restricted truck lanes, seatbelt violations, cell phone violations, not following traffic control devices, and things like that. If I looked at every motor carrier throughout the United States and I went to their unsafe basic, I would almost guarantee you that the biggest violation category they have is speeding. It's because in the commercial vehicle, speeding can be for 1 mile over the speed limit, or it can be, 20 miles over the speed limit. It's just one of those most frequent violations that I see under the unsafe basic on that. So you see that there's speeding here, and then there's a lane restriction, number 2. Let's dig into the unsafe driving, and I get into this a lot when I'm doing safety with a motor carrier. The drivers being in a restricted truck lane causes massive issues with your safety score with the DOT. Being in the wrong lane is just the first problem. It's putting a red flashing light on your truck saying, pull me over as quick as possible. That's what being in the restricted truck lane does. The DOT, the Highway Patrol, the local PD, everybody is watching that. They're watching for those restricted truck lanes and go, oh, there's a truck over in the restricted truck lane. Let me pull that truck over. So they get them for the restricted truck violation. A lot of times they get them for the speeding violation. Then they pull the driver over, and let's say the driver starts with a bad attitude with the officer and says, why the heck did you pull me over? Okay, now it's going to go really bad. I had this happen with a driver recently in South Carolina when the officer pulled him over in a construction zone. The driver said, why the hell did you pull me over? And it was a 3-hour stop, and they took the truck apart. That is really what happened on that situation. But here you go. You got a driver in a restricted lane, pulled over, possibly adding speeding there. Then they check the license and the med card. Oh, your medical card's not certified to your motor vehicle record. There's another violation. Driver, unmount the ELD and hand it to me, and let's look at your hour service. Driver doesn't know how to unmount the ELD from the mount. Okay, there's the next violation. Driver, show me a blank logbook with the last 8 days of violation. Okay, there's the next violation. I don't have that, sir. Show me your annual inspection in the truck binder. Here it is, but it's expired. Okay, there's the next violation. Then the officer starts looking at the truck, looks at the fire extinguisher. I'm going to show you that in a minute of how many fire extinguisher violations we get. All right, your fire extinguisher is not charged and is expired, or it's not secure or whatever. You see what's going on here under the unsafe basic is we've got these lane restrictions, and it goes from a lane restriction going, it's just a lane restriction, no big deal. But it goes horribly wrong for you from there. That there it goes. The same thing with speeding. Drivers in a hurry, they get into a speeding violation, they get pulled over, the same thing happens. They review the logs, they review the license, they review the medical card, they review the driver's fatigue, they review the driver's attitude. All of this stuff is the trigger that makes everything go horribly wrong for you. So I'm going to teach you how to look at this data so you can correlate some of what I'm saying in just a few minutes as I go through all this. If you go through the crash indicator, well, let me go back to the unsafe driving. I need to show you one more thing. This is the history of the violations right here. So I showed you the violation summary. Okay, these are ranked by the number of violations. And then the inspection history is showing you what the inspections are. So let me go through a little bit of this. As you scroll down, you see an inspection and you see a violation on this. And under the unsafe driving, generally when you see an inspection, there's a violation because they're saying the driver's driving unsafe for a reason. If you click on this little record here, it's going to give you some information about the inspection report number. And a little secret, it's not always correct, but it'll give you an idea. If you look at the last part of the inspection number, it'll tell you how many inspections the officer has done. Little trick there. And then as you go through this, you can see, all right, this is what I was talking about just a minute ago. This driver got caught for speeding. That was the reason that driver got pulled over, was speeding. And then he got an hours of service violation. So he just didn't get the speeding violation. He got the speeding and the hours of service violation. But he could have had a vehicle maintenance violation and things like that. But this is what I'm talking about when you're looking at this information. You're trying to figure out the why. Why did this happen? Okay. Why did this happen? This driver was speeding. Why did he get the hours of service violation? Well, he wasn't handling his ELD correctly, and he got that discovered because he was speeding. Same thing with, let's see if we can find one of those lane restriction right here. So not only did we get the lane restriction there, we got speeding and we got a hazmat on the lane restriction on that stop. That's what I'm talking about here. When this happens, when that driver gets in the wrong lane on this. So what I want you to do is, number one, I want you to have a written policy about lane restrictions. A lot of these drivers operate in the same environment. You'll get drivers that are running the same routes. They know where these restricted lanes are. You got team drivers that are running all over the United States. You got to train them on looking for these restricted lanes and staying out of them. A common practice that happens is a driver is in a truck that is governed their speed limit. So let's say it's governed to 65 miles an hour and they're in an area where, they're behind another vehicle and they're just going to bounce over into that restricted lane and get past the vehicle. Well, they can't do it quickly because their truck is governed. Then they get caught in that restricted lane, get the speeding ticket, get the hours of service ticket, and get all that. So once you have a written policy for lane restrictions, and then other things for unsafe driving, speeding, cell phone use, the things that you need to have policies on, and then that's what you're going to base your training is on the behavior. I don't want you to do training on big things. I want you to do training on the behavior. The behavior is being in a restricted lane is bad. Here's how you stop this behavior. That's the training there on that. So that's how you navigate a basic on going through on what's going on and getting some information about all of this stuff. All right, and then I was going to the crashes on this. A little bit different here. It's showing you the all the crashes, DOT recordable crashes, and then the crashes that are non-preventable. So the FMCSA allows you to dispute the preventability of crashes. Now it's very restrictive on this. So you've got to follow their program on what this is. I'll give you a couple of examples that I've handled. I had one crash. This was in South Texas where a vehicle rear-ended our trailer. I'm going, it's not preventable. Wow, we're definitely going to get that as a non-preventable crash because that under the crash criteria, a rear-end collision is something that you can move to preventable. But the motor carrier that had that crash failed to follow a key thing. They did not drug test the driver after the crash. They just said, oh, my driver wasn't at fault. It's a non-preventable crash. It's not something that I needed to do. But because they didn't follow the regulation of getting that driver post-accident drug and alcohol tested in the window that they were supposed to do, when we submitted to change it from preventable to non-preventable, it was rejected out because we didn't do the right things. So getting these crashes from here to here, you got to do the right things, and you've got to make sure that you are doing your accident investigation properly. You're following the drug and alcohol regulations after an accident, that you're doing everything as you are submitting your crash preventability recommendation to get that changed to non-preventable. You are doing the right things. That's key. So I want you to think about, what do you do after a crash? Do you get video? Do you have cameras in your trucks? Are you getting the videos immediately? Are you getting the driver statement? Are you having the driver take photos? Are you getting a driver statement? Are you doing the downloads of the driver logs? Are you figuring out what the weather report is? Are you doing the different things that you need to do to get this information so you have the information to push back on the FMCSA to go, listen now, that was not only our fault, it was not preventable. I say it that way because fault and preventability are two different things. You can have a driver that was not at fault for an accident, but it was a preventable accident. I just had this happen last week on an accident, watching a video, and it's a 3-lane interstate. Our driver's in the left lane. There's a truck in the middle lane, and there's a car in the right lane. It's in icy conditions, and the car loses control and spins off into the emergency lane on the right. Remember, our driver's in the left lane, far left lane. Another tractor is in the middle lane. The car's over here in the way right lane and spins, loses control on ice, spins out into the emergency lane. The tractor in the middle lane hits the brakes and slows down. Our driver never hit the brake. They just keep going. Well, what happened is when the car spun into the emergency lane, he hit the Jersey wall and then slingshotted across all 3 lanes in front of our truck. The driver was not at fault for the accident because, he didn't, he wasn't over there. He didn't cause the driver to spin out on the ice and lose control and all that. But in the video, the middle tractor hit the brake, reacted to the accident, because if the middle tractor had not done the brake, they would have hit the car. But when it spun back around, because the driver did not react to seeing the accident. And we can see in the video that the driver saw the whole accident play out because what the driver saw. But because the driver did not react to the accident and didn't hit the brake or change their condition, they broadsided the vehicle and in the accident, and then it was determined to be a preventable accident. So in that example, driver's not necessarily at fault, but the driver had a preventable accident. Those are key things you need to understand about looking at accidents on this. A real important part of this is you want to take your crashes and try to do as many of this exercise with the FMCSA through the data queue process of changing your crashes from preventable to non-preventable. Why? Again, the information is public. If I see from the public view that you're taking that serious and you are doing these things to change that, if the FMCSA comes back and says, yes, we agree with you, that is a non-preventable accident, that's going to help you not only with your public view, but it's going to help you with your insurance company. Your insurance company is going to see that. And when you're going through your insurance renewal and they are looking at your loss history, AKA your crash history, then they're going to see this data from your basic that is showing them what you've done to prove that you're not at fault for a lot of these accidents that's going on. That's key. And it's not an easy process going through the data queue process on getting these crashes reclassified. You've got to have real information. You've got to have the crash report. You've got to have the video. You've got to have the driver statement. You've got to have all of this information to present to the DOT to get them to do that. But you're going to do that in your accident investigation. You're going to have this information. You're going to do a good job at collecting all that data at the time of the accident and make sure you have it. So this is key when you're trying to get better insurance rates. You're trying to, get better freight rates because brokers are looking at this information too. So let's say you're going out and you're going through a broker, CH Robinson, whatever. They're pulling your SMS profile and looking at it as they're talking to you on the phone. And they're going, yeah, we're not going to be able to offer you any loads, or they're going to charge you more for the load because they think you are more of a risk. That's affecting your cash register in a bunch of different ways as you're looking at this. Your freight rate is higher, your insurance rate is higher, your claim cost is higher, you're paying for tickets, that's higher. All of this is going to what is happening with your company. And this is why it's so important of what I'm telling you to do, reviewing this data every month, going through it, trying to figure this out. All right, let's go on to the next basic here. Hours of service. Again, you're going through the chart, looking at your history. You're looking at how many violations you have, how many inspections you have, and you're going to go to the summary, form and manner, reviewing the records and certifying, which is still part of form and manner on that. Here's the thing about hours of service. It's not necessarily about the regulations. We see this online all the time where, we get drivers talking about it. We get people talking about it's the regulations, it's the regulations, it's the regulation. There is some to that. But here's the secret. The real problem with hours of service is drivers not understanding how to use your electronic logging device. Here's what I hear from drivers. I'm not good with technology. I don't understand technology. I don't know how to use this. I don't know how to use that. So where I see the critical mistake with motor carriers is they spend so much time, they get these videos from different vendors on understanding hours of service, understanding this, understanding that with the hours of service. That's the wrong training. The ELD is controlling the hours of service. It's built in to the program. So yes, does the driver need to know that if they're a truck driver, the maximum number of hours that they can drive in a day is 11 hours, or be on duty for 14 hours, or they must take a 30-minute break, or they are short haul exempt. They're not required to take a 30-minute break. The real problem with the hours of service with motor carriers is they do not have the tablet configured correctly. That's problem number one. And the drivers don't know how to use the tablet. That's problem number two. If you will solve those two problems, your hours of service will plummet because you won't have those violations. So form and manner is the driver doesn't put in the trailers. They don't have the correct carrier name in there. They don't have the shipments in there. And a lot of drivers, they just get lazy about it. They just don't put it in. They don't think it's important and all that. So if you want to solve the first problem, ELD form and manner, you've got to have a policy that says, okay, take your company. Don't use a generic policy. You're going to take your company, and let's say you transport freight for Lowe's Home Centers, and you get a bill of lading or a shipment document for Lowe's, and you're going to provide training to your driver that says, every time that we transport for Lowe's, here is a example of the shipment document. Here is the number we always take off of the shipment document from Lowe's, and we're going to copy that. You're going to take an actual picture of that, put it in your policy, highlight the shipment document, and says, this is what goes in the shipment document. I know that seems silly. That's obvious. We're being obvious about this, but you've got to do that. And let's say you have 5 or 6 different customers. So you got the Lowe's policy that shows where their shipment number is. Then you have the Home Depot one. Okay, got that one. Then we got the Ace Hardware one. Okay, there's that one. Then we got the Menards one. You have that one. But giving your drivers the actual screenshot of this with highlighting where the shipment document is with a arrow to it, a text box on the PDF saying, this is the number you put in the shipment box. You're going to eliminate those violations. If you are transporting your customers' trailers, showing them exactly where the trailer numbers are. You have this contract with your customer, going back to Lowe's. On their trailers, the trailer number is always on the rear of the trailer. Take a picture of a rear of a Lowe's trailer. Here is the trailer number. That is what I want you to put in the trailer on there. And doing that, it's not generic training. It's actually showing how your drivers are going to do this. Certifying logs. I get so many drivers. This is the number one problem I deal with across all of our customers is certifying the logs. It is so basic and so easy to do that I don't understand. It frustrates me why drivers don't do this on a regular basis. A lot of drivers, what they do is they just hit the I certify my logs. That is not the proper way to do that. Your log, your driver's log, is an official record to the FMCSA and in litigation. The proper way of doing this is the driver, before they certify their log, they should actually go to the grid in their electronic logging device and review the log. Think about in your operation when you get drivers that call and go, I don't have any hours. Well, they don't have any hours because they forgot to log out and they left themselves on duty. And they want you to fix that. The problem is the driver never looked at their log at the end of the day. if they had done that and looked at their log and reviewed it and go, okay, yeah, I started in Atlanta. Yep. Okay. Went through Birmingham. Yep. Got that. Moved up through Birmingham and went up to Chattanooga. Yep. Went from Chattanooga to Nashville. Yep. That makes all sense. I check my annotations and then I certify the log. If you will teach your drivers to do that, that's what a professional driver is supposed to do before they certify that legal document as true and accurate. That's what you want them to do, is to look at that log. Does it make sense? Are there any errors? And then once they do that, certify it. If you do that, then you eliminate the log certification problem. Falsification of logs is another issue on this. And I'll tell you the number one problem with falsification of log is your driver does not annotate their log properly. I see a lot of this where the driver tickles the keyboard. I'll see it JK, 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 or drop hook, or load, or loading, or something like that. The official record, the log, has to tell a story. So if your driver gets pulled over and the officer gets the log transferred to them, then your driver doesn't have a good story. It's going to cause your driver to be placed out of service because it's going to look like your driver is trying to hide the truth in that log. Some key things to think about that on annotation. If your driver is using PC, and there are legal uses to use PC, they could be going from the home to report to work. They could be let off duty from work to drive to home because they park at home. Don't put PC in. Put PC dash driving home, or PC driving from home to report to duty. It's going to change how your roadside inspections happen on making sure on that. Another thing about PC is taking the tractor to go to Walmart, shopping at Walmart. Don't put this just store as the annotation. PC dash shopping at Walmart, going to the casino, whatever. Adverse conditions, just don't put in wreck or weather. Adverse conditions should say AC dash State Patrol in Missouri shut down the highway due to a crash, was delayed and had to be averted to a different route. That's a better annotation, and it'll stop a lot of these falsification of log issues on that. And then the final thing, if you really want to stop your hours of service violations, I want you to practice doing this. Put your driver, you've hired a new driver, put them in the driver's seat, have them put their seatbelt on, close the door, and then open the door. And I want you to act like a DOT officer. And here's what you're going to do. Driver, unmount the ELD and hand it to me, because that's the first violation if they can't do that. So they unmount the ELD and it's in their hand, or they hand it to you and say, okay, driver, log into the ELD and show me the screen on where to transfer the logs. Get to the screen, get to that. Okay, now I want you to say the next thing. The DOT officer is going to give you one of two things. They're either going to give you a web code or an email address to transfer the logs. On your ELD, there's two decisions to make there: web code or email address. You need to explain that to your driver, because if the officer gives them a web code, which is a series of letters and numbers, then they need to be in the web code. If it's a officer at missouri.dot.gov, that's the email. It's key for them to understand. You also need to relay to your driver that it is not the DOT officer's responsibility to know how your ELD works to transfer the logs. That is the driver's responsibility. So you have to teach them this. Okay, we covered that. We've unmounted the ELD. We know how to transfer the logs. And then in your tractor binder, you're going to have the ELD manual. You're going to have separate from the ELD manual, because it's usually in the manual, to have the DOT transfer instructions. And then you're going to have the DOT malfunction instructions. Those are the three things that you got to have from the ELD. And then you're going to have a blank logbook with 8 days of blank logs. The driver is required to have that. So let's say you have Motive ELD. You're going to have the Motive ELD manual in your tractor binder. Inside of that manual is the DOT instructions. You're going to take that portion of the manual and you're going to remove it separately, and you're going to print off that 1 to 2 page piece for DOT instructions. You're going to take it out and you're going to go over to Office Max or Staples or wherever, and you're going to laminate that sheet. And then that's going to be in the front cover of your tractor binder. And then on your ELD malfunction instructions, it's going to say basically something like this. If you have an ELD malfunction, you are required to contact safety or the manager or whoever by end of shift, and here is the number you call to talk about that. It's critical that you have that in the manual. It's critical that the driver does that step. And it's critical that the driver, when they move to paper logs, that the first thing they do on that log is they draw their line down on when this ELD malfunction happened, and they write on that paper log, ELD malfunction. And it starts from there. So we got that. We got the paper log now on the ELD malfunction. We got that documented. But wait, there's more. You've got to go into the administration dashboard and download your driver's last day of logs. Remember, his ELD was working great up until this ELD malfunction. Then the malfunction happened. He's moving the paper logs. Well, if he gets pulled over, he's got to have the 8 days his last 8 days of logs. And if he doesn't have those, then he's going to get a violation. So you see what happens in this situation when a tablet goes bad for whatever reason, that this is causing the issue. So again, on the ELD malfunction, tablet craps out, move to paper log, start filling it out. First line, ELD malfunction. Hey boss, I got an ELD malfunction. I'm moving the paper logs. Send me my last 8 days logs. Send it to the driver. Then if the driver gets pulled over, then they have everything. You just eliminated a lot of those violations. These things right here, ELD display screen is not viewable by an authorized officer. Well, there was 39 drivers that couldn't unmount the ELD. So everything I just told you eliminates the majority of everything in the first categories right here. This company here is not unique. This is what I'm seeing across all companies. This is not unique to them. This is what the problem is with hours of service. It's not all this 11 and 14 hour and things like that. The problem is we don't set up the ELD administration dashboard correctly, and we don't train our drivers on what to do with the ELD, and that is what's causing the problems there. All right, vehicle maintenance. Every motor company I look at, this is higher than they ever want it to be. And there's some inherent problems with vehicle maintenance. So I'm going to go through this, and again, you're going to look at your trends. You're seeing how many violations, how many inspections here. You're going to get your violation summary here, and you're going to go through this. I don't care what company it is, tires, lamps, brakes, and flaps across the board. Across the board, those are the problems across the board. So if you think about on tires, I have some motor carriers, very few, that go Well, I'm gonna have all my drivers check the air pressure of all the tires before they leave. I'm gonna make them take a picture while they're doing it. Not a very successful program. Drivers hate it. They don't want to do it. It's problematic and things like that. Brakes is really difficult for a driver to deal with during a pre-trip inspection. A lot of drivers do not have the expertise to figure out what's going on with brakes. So, if the driver, if you're getting brake and tire issues and you start, yelling at your driver that, well, you need to do a better pre-trip inspection and this, a lot of that is out of the driver's control. So I'm going to talk to you about setting this program up so you're doing it the correct way without throwing it all on the driver on what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be catching this stuff through pre-trip, in-trip, and post-trip inspections. And that's, you know, what they're supposed to be doing, but we really have got to set the drivers up for success. And that doesn't have anything to do with the driver. That has to do with putting the program together so that they are up for success. All right. So let's talk about that program. Let's say you are a motor carrier and you have 50 trucks and your drivers are regional drivers. Let's say they go out for 250 miles and deliver their load and come back 250 miles delivering their load. I'm going to make it easy. Team drivers that go all over the country and over the road drivers going all the country, a little bit different on this. So the way you want to set up this program is in a three-prong process. Okay, so you have your drivers that should be doing a pre-trip, in-trip, and post-trip inspection. So in their pre-trip inspection, what you want to teach them to do is to catch the red flags that are going to get them pulled over. So you see the information I've got here with tires and brakes and flaps and lamps and things like that. I want you to teach your drivers to think about they're driving down the highway and the highway patrol officer in the SUV is passing them. And they see a tire that's low, a mud flat that has a tear in it. The hoses are sitting on the catwalk. A lamp is out. A lamp is flickering, to say the least. Those are the type of things that I want your drivers to really focus on. Fluids leaking from the hub on things like that. Those are the things that your drivers can catch to say, we've got a problem here before they go out on the road. You've got to monitor your own drivers' inspections. That's really what part of this program is to get your drivers to do the pre-trip, in-trip, and post-trip inspection. Then your maintenance or your managers have got to look at the inspections. And I'm going to give you an example why. I had an inspection with a driver, and the inspection from the ELD app that they were using stated for the driver to take a picture of the mud flaps. Driver, roger that, took a picture of the mud flap. The picture of the mud flap that I saw had an 8-inch hole in the mud flap. Obvious defect. Talked to the driver about it, and the driver's response to me was, you told me to take a picture of the mud flap, that's what I did. But the driver didn't do the next step that say to the maintenance or his manager that, hey man, I got this mud flap over here. It's got a big old gaping hole in it. We need to do something on this. That's the miss on that program on that. So you get drivers that don't really do good pre-trip inspections. They sort of pencil whip it. You see that when you see your driver or a group of drivers that, okay, we went through the week and there were no defects. It's just check, 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 all clear, no defects. Well, you know your equipment. You see your violations here that you're getting violations monthly. So all clean DVIRs doesn't make sense with an operation that's having roadside violations. It doesn't. So something is wrong on that. There are different things that you can do. I tell my managers to be on scene, watch their drivers do pre-trip inspections, help mentor drivers on doing pre-trip inspections and those type of things to get them to do it. I sometimes tell managers to go over to Lowe's or Home Depot into the plumbing department. You can buy these little plumbing tags that are made out of aluminum with a little key ring on it. And you can take a Sharpie marker that says call safety and you can attach that little tag to the dipstick. You only have to do that a couple of times for your drivers to go, oh, my manager Steve put this on the dipstick and called me up and said, "Hey John, how was that pre-trip inspection? Any problems with the truck?" "No, man, it's good." "Okay, well, I noticed you didn't lift the hood and look at the oil where I put that at." I've seen some safety people that will do that particular thing to catch a driver doing that and then have a monthly safety memo that they give all their drivers and go, "Well, we had driver Steve that missed out on a $50 gift card because he got caught by not checking this." You don't have to do it for every truck, but you do it every now and then when your drivers don't expect it. That forces them into the habit of always checking. They don't know when you're going to do that. So that can be helpful when your managers are not always available there or things like that. But that's how you can get compliance out of your drivers on the inspections. The reason your managers need to look at the inspections is you know your equipment better than anybody knows your equipment. So if you see trucks that are having more roadside violations, it's either a driver problem, a truck problem, or both problem. So you're trying to figure out what's going on with those inspections. All right. In-trip inspections don't have to be a formal inspection. It's basically you want to get the driver that every time they stop at a rest area, just hit the pre-trip light on the dash that a lot of tractors have and turn all the lights on, do a quick walk around the truck. I get drivers to listen. You walk around the truck, you're at the rest area, listen. Do you hear any audible air leaks? Because that's what the DOT guy's doing. Okay, I don't hear anything. Are all my lights working? Yep. Did I lose any mud flaps? Nope. Mud flaps look good. Good. Okay, hoses on the catwalk? Nope, look good. It doesn't take long. It's 5 minutes, quick walk around. I get drivers who, they're at a fuel lane and they go, "Well, I can't do it at a fuel lane because it's unsafe," and all that. And I get that. But if they pull out of the fuel lane and they're want to do a quick walk around on that, they finish the fueling, they pull up real quick, next truck pulls in, they walk around the truck real quick, 5 minutes, they got that done. Post-trip inspections. The main reason you want post-trip inspections is for your driver to set up the next trip. If there's a problem with the truck, they need to let management or maintenance know about it. That's the importance of a post-trip inspection, is so you can deal with things at your home terminal or wherever. And I'll give you an example. And this is an old example because I know the prices have changed, so bear with me. What I tell drivers is a tire is worth $300 at the terminal. A tire on the side of the road is $1,500. I know it's much more than that now, but that's the mindset of a post-trip inspection. If you get back to the terminal and you got a tire issue, driver, you need to do the post-trip so maintenance knows about this and we can deal with that and we can handle that problem here instead of you being out on the side of the road and it's 1,500, 2,000, 2,500. God forbid there's an accident from it, but that's the real reason you want to do the post trip. Okay, so I've covered the driver on that pre trip, in trip, post trip. Okay, now for the check and balance. When the driver is off duty, they've gone out. I told you they're a regional driver. They've gone out for their 5 days and their tractor is back for the weekend, let's say. Your check and balance is the maintenance folks should pull that tractor into what I call a safety lane. If you have a garage, it comes into the garage, and the maintenance folks look at what the driver said over the week, makes any changes, cleans things out, does what they need to do, check the emergency equipment, look at the triangles, look at the hoses, check the tires, check all this. That's your check and balance. And I've had some fun with this, and it amazes me where I will go to a terminal and, I'll talk to the owner and I'll say, hand me a tractor and hand me a trailer available for me to do a mock DOT inspection on this. Have your drivers there. And I had this happen a few times where the owner goes, yeah, I got you a brand new tractor and I got a brand new trailer, and you're not going to find anything on this. In reality, what happened in those situations is I started my inspection of the equipment, and within 5 minutes, I had 11 violations on new equipment because they didn't know how to look at their equipment and go through it and see all this stuff. And it was an eye opener for not only the owner, but the maintenance folks in the operation to understand we're not really looking at the right things. Maintenance is a huge expense for a trucking company. Again, you're trying to mitigate your costs by fixing tires at $300 at the terminal instead of $1,500 on the side of the road. That's where you're saving your money. And doing the things that you need to do to get more fuel efficiency out of tractors, making sure your drivers are taking care of your very expensive equipment, those type of things. But I encourage you to figure out some type of check and balance. If you don't have a garage, use your managers to be your check and balance and hold them to a formal program, a written program to your managers. Dear managers, you will review the equipment every week. Here is your checklist to review the equipment. If you don't do this, we're going to have problems on this. Drivers, if you don't do your pre-trip, in-trip, and post-trip inspections, I'm going to have disciplinary issues for you on doing this. Then for a lot of companies, there is a third check and balance, and this is the guard at the guard shack. So if you think about operating in your terminal and you got a fence around your terminal, your insurance company goes, do you have a secure location where this equipment is parked? Check, yes. Do you have a guard? Check, yes. Then your guard is your third check and balance. So the driver is leaving the terminal. They stop at the guard shack. Here's the conversation from the guard. Driver, hand me your paperwork. Gets the paperwork. Driver, where are you going? I'm going to Kansas City, Missouri. Okay, looks at the paperwork. Yes, that is where you're going. Driver, show me your CDL and your med card. Physically take it out and show it to me. Okay, got it. Driver, show me the tractor binder. Got it. Driver, check the cab card and the annual inspection and the insurance card real quick. Yep, check, got it. I'm going to do a quick walk around real quick. Driver, hit the pre-trip lights. I'm going to walk around real quick with my clipboard. Yep. Bring it back. Hand the driver the license and medical card, paperwork, all of that. Driver, you're good to go. Be safe out there. That is how you get these violations to disappear off of your vehicle maintenance, is putting that system in somehow where you are having your drivers do their inspection, maintenance is doing theirs, and a guard is doing theirs to catch what the issues are. Going back to that example where the owner got me a brand new truck and a brand new trailer and all that, I had the guard do this during that day that I was doing that exercise. And the funny thing was, it was a brand new tractor that had a chip in the windshield, about yay big. And the guard walked around, did everything, but they didn't look at the windshield. And I said, you got a violation right there that just rolled out of the lot that you didn't catch. So there's a lot going on with your equipment that you just can't shove it all down to your drivers to say, you've got to do better pre-trip and post-trip inspections. That's not going to solve your problem. That will never solve your problem on that. So um, controlled substance and alcohol violations, summary there. The thing I'm going to tell you about drug and alcohol is it's not going to help you in litigation if you have a truck crash and a driver that is impaired. That ain't going to help. It's not going to help with your insurance renewal at all, because they look at that as a critical violation. And, if you're paying $20,000 a month on a truck and you have a drug and alcohol violation that you did not catch, things like that, then you're going to be in trouble on that. The clearinghouse is the main issue that I see the problem. So I want you to do this with your drivers. I want you to teach your drivers that to protect themselves, I want you to teach them to log into their clearinghouse every single month. What happens to a driver that gets them in a non-prohibited state that you may not even think about? You don't know behind the scenes that the driver is thinking about, I'm going to go look for another job. And they go apply for a job at Acme Trucking. You don't know about it. And they go apply for the job and they go, well, the boss gave me some more runs or whatever. I don't want to work for Acme. But Acme scheduled that driver for a pre-hire drug and alcohol test, and they did not show up for that simple thing of applying to another job and got scheduled for a drug and alcohol test and didn't show up. Seems kind of harmless, right? Well, what happens is that driver is reported by Acme Trucking as a no-show to the drug and alcohol, and then they go to the clearinghouse and get prohibited on that. And if you're not checking the clearinghouse and the driver's not checking the clearinghouse, then your driver is going to get caught on the side of the road. So let's say you're based in Atlanta, Georgia, and your driver is in California. Your driver's out of service. And guess what? You're sending a driver from Atlanta to California to go get your $180,000 truck and your load and moving. That's what you're dealing with on that. So watching that clearinghouse, doing that correctly. The clearinghouse is connected to the DMV now. So what is I'm seeing that's going on in real time is the driver goes prohibited. A lot of times on that little tidbit I just told you on the Acme Trucking thing, they don't know they're prohibited. They go prohibited and they get caught and their license is downgraded, and then you're stuck on that. So making sure that you are looking at that and that you are talking to your drivers on, you check your status in the clearinghouse every month, and I'm going to check your status in the clearinghouse every month. Every single month, you're going to do that. And then making sure you're doing your annual limited queries properly. That'll get you in trouble for that. Your drug and alcohol program, I see a lot of this with motor carriers where they pick their own randoms. The main issue with picking your own randoms is that if you don't have documentation of how you chose your randoms, you're going to get in trouble for that. I went and saw a trucking company in Alabama one time, and the owner told me, he goes, I just put bottle caps in a ball cap and put the driver's names on it and pull it out. That is not sufficient for random testing. You've actually got to show documentation of how you pull those. If you use an outside consortium, that's the safest. Make sure your consortium stays in business and checking that. Make sure that you're checking the national registry for your driver's medical cards and things like that. That's going to be on the driver fitness. You know, you're checking here of your violations, um, medical certificate. That's the main thing that I'm seeing right now is several things happen. Driver moves from one state. Let's say you're based in Atlanta, Georgia, and the driver moves to Birmingham, Alabama. Just moved to the next state. If they don't certify their medical card, you know, they got their license changed, but don't certify the medical card to their motor vehicle department there, then they're going to get caught on the side of the road, be placed out of service, and that's going to be a problem. I do see on occasion where medical cards are fraudulent. So you have to go to the National Registry of Medical Examiners and check the medical card. You are required to do that, not anybody else. You are required to do that. So in your driver qualification file, your driver presents a medical card. There should be a screenshot from the National Registry of Medical Examiners showing that the number on that card and that screenshot matched. And you're okay, that's good. CDLs can get downgraded. The most aggravating thing that I see is child support issues. The best thing I can tell you to try to mitigate that is try to have an understanding from your drivers of who has child support obligations. So at least you can do this. I live in the state of Florida, and in the state of Florida, they have a wonderful website with the DMV that you can put in a driver's license number, and it will tell you if that number is valid or suspended or revoked. That's all it'll tell you about the number. So I have motor carriers in the state of Florida that will take their driver's license number. Unfortunately, you have to do it one by one. They go to the website, the DMV website, they put the number in, hit submit, and verify that the license is good. It's a pain. There are third parties out there that they have services that you can monitor driver's license and things like that. But child support or a medical card being downgraded or being prohibited in the clearinghouse are the main things that I see that cause driver issues and that you need to be on top of. That, you know, if you work for a company and you don't have access to the clearinghouse, let's say you're an owner op or whatever, just put in the procedure, driver, I want you to take a screenshot of your clearinghouse from your phone and show me you're not prohibited every month. Roger that. Good to go. You're good to dispatch. So that's something you can do there. Hazardous materials may not apply to a lot of people watching this webinar, but the main things with this is understanding where the information is, looking at this, and figuring this out. Again, the danger here is with your insurance company. If you've told your insurance company that you are not hauling hazardous material and you get caught moving hazardous material, you can pretty much expect that your insurance company is not going to renew your policy. I've seen it. I've seen that happen where even if it was a partial load with paint or something and, it's something minor, I've seen that happen, and I don't want you to be in that position. If you do transport hazardous materials, then the biggest thing is paperwork. The paperwork is not right. The paperwork is not where it's supposed to be. And for this video, it is in a binder that says hazardous material in the doorway of the driver. The regulation states that it has to be in the reach of the driver from being buckled in their seat. So it in the door is where you want it. Here it is. Here is my paperwork for the bill of lading. Here is my material data safety sheet. And then the orange hazmat emergency procedures. All of that is going to be in the door right there. So when the officer opens the door, driver's in the seat, seatbelt's still on. I need to see your hazardous material stuff. Boop, right here. Here you go, officer. It's all good to go. Ready there. And then making sure the trailers are placard right and things like that. But it's the paperwork, not having the paperwork accessible and the driver not understanding the paperwork. That's what you're going to concentrate on. That was a lot on that. I'm just going to show you real quick. You can download your data. And the secret of what I'm about to show you of, all right, you have all your data in here is if you download it here, you can download all of your data or each category right there. And if you do that on downloading your data and doing all that, I use a program from Google on Notebook LM. And it's going to be basically what I'm talking about is if I'm reviewing this company, I just went through everything. I went through all the basic scores. I looked at their violations. I figured out what was going on. I told you what to do to fix a lot of this stuff. I downloaded the data and then I move over here, created a new notebook, and I uploaded the data from this DOT number right here. And then I held a bunch of little chats over here about the data, and then I output certain things here. What I want you to do as a safety professional is I want you to use something like this. I have just found this is the best system to do this on. It's going to give you a swift kick in the butt. It's going to be brutally honest with you on what your problems are. And that is great. That is what you want, is what is going on with my operation and what do I need to do to fix this information. So I downloaded the data from the CSA. I uploaded it here. I had a conversation with it. And then put your safety hat on is, I just played with this and none of this is correct. I didn't correct anything. It's just the raw data. It doesn't mean anything, but I want you to see some of the outputs of what this can do because being in safety, you are responsible not only for your drivers, but you are responsible to reporting to the heads of your company, the chief financial officer who's out there trying to buy insurance and pay for the cost of everything, the owner of the company who's trying to stay in business on this stuff. And I hate to see when I see a safety director, I talk to a safety director and they go, well, John, I certainly don't need your help. I know everything. I've been doing this for 20 years and all this. I've been doing it 37 years and I learn something new every day. Using a tool like this to be brutally honest with you on where you are having problems is such a eye opener to think about doing things differently. This is what we do in our company is, we base fixing problems from driver behavior, knowing that one fix does not fix them all. This is what this can do for your company on figuring out how to identify these issues and this stuff. So again, you upload your sources, you chat about it, and then like you can get here. And again, this is not accurate data, not even accurate pictures. I just told it to use a white truck and it's using European trucks, but it's going to give you this presentation to yourself of exactly what your problems are. Again, this is wrong because I didn't correct it in preparing all this. But it gives you your executive summary. It gives you things that you can talk about here on what it is. Okay, here's my main codes. Here's my main issues. We just looked at all the data. I just spent 45 minutes going through the data. Now you're seeing what you can do with this stuff to visualize the data. Okay, all right, I'm responsible for this. I've got to fix this problem How am I going to do that? And this is what can help you with, like unsafe driving. Dang it, I know I got a speeding problem. Here it is, 392.2. Got a distracted driving problem. Got seatbelt violations. I've got, this with hazmat and controlled substance. It goes on and on and on with what it's doing. So what did I prompt the system to do? I said, I'm the safety director. I want you to create a presentation that I'm presenting to the head of the company about what all our problems are based on our basic scores data. Let's say you're the safety director, and let's say your hours of service and vehicle maintenance basic score was above the intervention threshold at the beginning of 2025, and you got it to reduce 25%. You could do the same thing of creating the presentation of build me a presentation that I'm going to send to my insurance company showing the trends and the different things that we did to reduce the hours of service and vehicle maintenance basic scores, and really hone in on the data on that. We use this training, did all this. It'll create the presentation for you to use in your renewal of your insurance. You send that 120 days, 90 days before your insurance renews, this presentation to your agent. And then what do? You email it to your agent, and then you get on the phone and you go, I need you out there kicking butt and taking names and getting me better insurance coverage and better savings on that. I just gave you a presentation. I want you to send that presentation to the underwriter. I want you to kick their ass, and I want you to get me a better rate. That's a totally different thing than sending your information to your insurance agent on the loss runs, and here's my vehicle count, and here's my driver count, and all this, expecting your agent to do that job for you. It's your job. You're the one that knows your company better. You're the one that's got to fight for it. And this is what I want you to do, is to create this information that you can do that to get better rates on this. I tell this to a lot of owners. We're all operating in the same sandbox. A lot of it's the same insurance cost in the same jurisdiction. A lot of it is the same fuel cost in the same jurisdiction, same maintenance cost, same payroll cost, same everything. He or she that does a better job of whittling away at those costs is the winner at the end of the day. And this is what this can help you to do. It's not fancy. It's not anything that you can't do on your own. It just makes it a lot easier for you to do this. Another example I did here was I did an analysis report right here. Okay, I'm the safety director and my boss is screaming at me because we have issues and things like that. I can, okay, create me a report on this and go through all of the critical issues and things like this. It could be a report to yourself, you know, dear report. I'm the safety director and I keep missing things and I need some ideas of how to correct this information or do better. This is what you can do against yourself to do this self-analysis. And then obviously with anything that's generating like this or AI or anything, you've got to check it. Does it make sense? Is it really true? These things hallucinate badly. So knowing that, and then, you can create infographics. Okay, here's an infographic on unsafe driving and violations and all that. It makes it easier for you to visualize what the issues are. You can take this data, you can create driver memos from this, you can create handouts for your drivers and things like that. And it can really help you to identify the problem on that. So that's all fine and great. I've gone through the basic scores. We've told you how to get all the data out, and I'm telling you here how to extrapolate the data and understand the data. But at the end of the day, in being a safety director or an owner of a trucking company, the hardest part is execution to do it and all that. My experience with looking at thousands of trucking companies is it's very difficult to execute the change of what you need to do on a day-to-day basis, because for a safety person, they're spending the majority of their day putting out fires. That's what they spend the majority of their time on. And so I'm going to cover this just shortly, but I showed you how to go through your basic scores. I showed you how to do the analysis using Notebook LM. The execution of it is what we do on this. So what we do is we bring in all the telematic data from the cameras, the ELD, all of the information for your operation. We bring it into our software, which is a whole lot more information than your basic scores. We bring that in, and then we validate, normalize the data, and then the output is the coaching of your drivers, the training of your drivers based on, the behavior and things like that. And that's the complete picture here. You're watching your basics, you're analyzing your basics, you're using a tool like us that's actually executing what needs to happen on your basics, and you're operating in a dashboard that is basically the conductor of your safety orchestra. We're handling all the little stuff from the basics to your analysis to this to drive those scores down. That's what the secret is to this whole program right there, is you've got to do the first steps, watching your data, log in every 30 minutes, analyzing the data to figure out where your problems are, and then using something like this that is automatically handling your problems on a day-to-day basis. That is the secret from changing everything with your safety program on there. So I highly encourage you to really dig down and go through this stuff. And I know it was a lot. I mean, I can go on for hours on this stuff, and it can be a lot. So I want you to watch this video several times and go through what I'm talking about this and really analyze what's going on with your program there. I think, see if we have any questions. Nope. I really appreciate you attending this webinar. Again, I know it's a lot, and feel free to reach out to us for assistance. And I hope y'all have a very great day.